This video is part one of a three-part dialogue series. Because dialogue is and has always been a difficult thing to grasp for emerging writers. And this video will help us understand why dialogue is so important, how much dialogue should you use, and the four most important rules about formatting your dialogue. Now next week we'll be breaking down the highly praised book Dialogue by Robert McKee to learn how to write strong dialogue. And then finally, in part three, it's a video where I answer all of your questions about dialogue. Post them below to get the answers that you need. The number one best thing that you can do to improve your dialogue is to write your dialogue correctly. This is non-negotiable. And let me explain. A portion of this video is sponsored by Pro Writing Aid. Dialogue is the heart of your story. And you may think that characters are the heart of your story, but dialogue is the most effective way for readers to understand your characters. So it's hard to do one great without doing the other great as well. As I've read more work from emerging writers, I've noticed something interesting. New writers seem to misunderstand the importance of dialogue and the importance of formatting that dialogue correctly. Let me hit you with something bold here. If you do not format your dialogue correctly, people will struggle to connect with your characters. And if a reader can't connect with your characters, then they can't connect with your story. This video came directly from what I've seen from emerging writers in our Discord channel. If you are a writer looking for a community that offers support, constructive feedback, and a place to share your ideas, then you found it. Check out the link below. We share tips and resources, and we even do writing challenges every couple of weeks that give you an excuse to write. And who knows, you may even win some money with your next short story. Come hang out. The very first thing I want to mention here is that you must have dialogue in your story. And hold on. I know that you're about to type something like, this book doesn't have dialogue and it's great. Or Cormac McCarthy does his dialogue in a weird way and people love his books. And you may be right, but that is by far the exception, not the rule. And as for Cormac McCarthy, once you become a Pulitzer Prize winning author, you can break any rules you want. So let's take a look at something interesting. Some beginner writing that I've seen has a lot of action on the page. Details of the world, lots of movement of the characters, maybe even the reactions of characters to the things around them. But these authors don't include enough dialogue. Well, I guess that kind of begs the question, how much dialogue should be in your story? Well, I have an answer for you. Let's take a look at a few popular books. I grabbed completely random 1,000 word passages from these books. And then I used a feature called linguistic focus in my writing tool of choice, Scrivener, and I can count how many pieces of direct speech are within that 1,000 word passage. This counts how many lines of text are surrounded by those double quotes. So when I did this, I found that Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets counts 31 quotes in that 1,000 word passage. The Order of the Phoenix counts 36 quotes. Now, before you push back on me saying that these are just children's books, let's look at some classics. The Great Gatsby shows 63 quotes in the random passage that I took from that book, and Anna Karenina shows 20 quotes in its random 1,000 word passage. A Game of Thrones sits at 24 lines of dialogue for its 1,000 word passage. Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson has 39 lines of dialogue. Sinlin Ascends has 25 lines of dialogue. Now, most of these were just books that I happened to just have access to on my Kindle, so I just chose them randomly. But hey, that's a great random sampling. Okay, so what does this tell us? Well, I purposefully chose passages from like the random middle parts of each book. And I figured that most early parts of the book would be dialogue heavy as characters are being established and a lot of exposition would be happening in that way. So I just grabbed 1,000 words from the middle of a book because I figured this was the best place to get an average. And at this point in the book, there should be plenty of action and internal narration happening. The dialogue that happens in these sections are now mainly about character interaction and moving the plot forward. So if you feel that you have too much or too little dialogue, this sort of analysis can give us a benchmark for you to judge your own work against. So with these samples, there is an average of 34 lines of dialogue per 1,000 words in narrative fiction. Now, personally, I think you can kind of tell if you have too much or too little dialogue by reading your own work. But if you don't yet have this skill, then take 1,000 words and count your dialogue and compare. And now you have that benchmark. Now, all of this is to show you that dialogue is a necessary part of your book and must be represented in your writing. If you are attempting to write a book, then you need dialogue. But why?
Why?
So here's the deal. Dialogue is an important human element of your story. If you're telling a story in first person, let's say, you live in that character's head as the reader, but dialogue is how the reader is exposed to and understands every other character in the story. The reader doesn't get to understand those other characters' thoughts and motivations like he understands that perspective character. It's only within their words that you learn about them. Dialogue is also what tends to drive human plot. And every story is a human story at its core. It's the words between a daughter seeking approval from a disapproving mother. It's the tense conversation between two gladiators in a fight to the death. It's the muttered apology of a gritty detective to his new upbeat partner. This is the idea of every story having two storylines. Storyline A is Indiana Jones trying to find and claim the Holy Grail. Storyline B is Indiana connecting with his father. That's the human story. And that second storyline is done completely in the interactions between the characters and their dialogue. And you see the evolution in how they speak to each other. You need dialogue, and you need a lot of it. If you're new to writing, or even if you are an experienced writer, you need the right tools for the job. Luckily, this part of the video is sponsored by Pro Writing Aid. Pro Writing Aid, simply put, helps you write. More importantly, it helps you write well. 4 years ago, I bought a lifetime membership to Pro Writing Aid because it integrates natively with my writing tool of choice, Scrivener. It makes editing so much easier to have a dedicated place to open up my manuscript, use all the different Pro Writing Aid tools and reports, save my edits, and I'm done. But Pro Writing Aid is more than just a creative writing tool. It's a toolkit built by writers for writers. You can change the writing style, and the editing that it provides will change with it. Now you can use it to help you write your school paper, your work emails, or even blog posts. And if you don't use Scrivener, then Pro Writing Aid still has you covered. They have an extension for just about every single web browser so that you can get the editing feedback anywhere online. The Desktop Everywhere app takes this even further. You can install that app and then use Pro Writing Aid anywhere on your computer. And now it basically integrates with any place that you can enter text. You can use the link in the description for 10% off, and also bonus, if you're a student, then you can get 20% off. Thank you to Pro Writing Aid. Okay, so now we understand why dialogue is considered to be so important. Now let's talk about you actually writing that dialogue on the page, because this is another place where emerging authors can fail. Okay, so art is interpretive. I get that. You can do things differently. But in writing that you want to share with the world, there are some rules you just need to follow. And I'll make this as short and sweet as I can with links to additional resources below. The most important rule: if a new character speaks, their dialogue begins on a new line. Always. I've seen emerging writers put their dialogue all in one paragraph, and it is impossible to track. And this is the most important rule for a reason. Good writing is invisible. And if your readers have to stop, backtrack, and try to figure out which character is talking, then you're going to lose them. Next rule: use dialogue tags. Dialogue tags most frequently follow the dialogue or interrupt the dialogue, but it is acceptable to put dialogue tags before the dialogue. but it's typically less common in the modern fiction that I read, at least. Now, an alternative to dialogue tags is to replace it with action. This can feel more natural in some cases and can bring a little variety, move things a little bit faster. And this is especially important when you feel like your dialogues are becoming repetitive. And it can also be used to sort of speed up the story. The exception to this rule is when you have two characters going back and forth. Since there are only two characters, the reader can assume that each dialogue line break means that the other character has started speaking. Now, I personally don't try to push this too far. I generally don't have a dialogue exchange that extends beyond 4 to 6 short lines without dialogue tags. And if I do, then I'll sprinkle in dialogue tags every now and then to sort of give the reader a checkpoint to refresh their memory for who's speaking. You know what I'm saying? Next rule, in long dialogue, like speeches or monologues, you can write your dialogue in paragraph form. As long as the same character is speaking uninterrupted, you can end one paragraph of dialogue without closing the quotes and begin the next paragraph as normal dialogue. You may have seen this in some books that you've read. You may have wondered, is this a mistake? Did I catch them on a formatting error? But no, this is a shortcut to the reader that the character is not done talking. Last rule. You can find some advice online, and it is controversial advice to be sure, that says, "Said is dead." This is a new idea that the dialogue tags he said or she said or it said, blah, 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 should no longer be used and instead replaced with other more descriptive tags. And according to every author that I've spoken to and every published book that I've read, that is bogus. In fact, I think you should default to using he said or she said maybe 80% of the time and mix it up with action or other words the remaining 20% of the time. So here's the deal. Dialogue tags as simple as he said or she said are practically invisible to the reader. Remember, good writing is invisible. When you're reading, you don't take time to parse every single word of a dialogue tag. Your brain interprets that dialogue tag just enough to understand what character is speaking and maybe how they're saying it. And then those dialogue tags are skipped over. The argument for said is dead considers this to be wasted opportunity when you could use something more descriptive for the reader. I disagree. Using he said and she said lets you get past the dialogue tag and to the more important information like action and reaction. There are more rules regarding formatting, but I'm gonna leave that up to the videos I've linked in the description. They can do it way better than I can do it. These videos go into more detail on punctuation, capitalization, grammar, and more. But if you follow the 4 rules that I've mentioned here, your dialogue will be in enough of a standardized format that readers can follow it. Now you might be thinking, whoa, I want to learn how to write good dialogue. This video is all about rules and formatting. Yeah, you're right. But in our next video, we tackle the famous writing book Dialogue by Robert McKee. And we break down that book into all of its great actionable takeaways. Pick it up in the link below, and next week we become dialogue gods. Post your questions on dialogue below or join the Discord and contribute over there. The Discord is the easiest way to get in touch with me, and it's the easiest way to become part of a great writing community. Part 3 of this series will take all of the most common questions and give you a direct answer. Like this video and subscribe for more writing content like this, and as always, thank you for watching.